Oikos presents 15 Seconds of Strength.
Here we go. Steve's got a trunk full of groceries and no one to help him.
Oh, that's tough, Jim. Looks like a 5-trip load at least.
He grabs the first bag, the second. Bob, it looks like he's trying to do it all in one trip. He shimmies the door open, steps over the dog, and he stumbles.
Oh, right into the kitchen without missing a beat. Jim, now that's a man who eats his protein-packed Oikos.
With 15 grams of complete protein in each cup, Oikos Triple Zero can help build strength for every day. Oikos, stronger makes everything better.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Thursday, April the 4th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, and David Williams. He's produced the program. We're looking forward to speaking with you this morning on a topic of your choosing. So, if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So, as mentioned by Brian Medore, the VOCM newscast, Team Guzhou, Team Canada over at the Men's Worlds, 3 straight 7-4 victories, 4 straight wins, bringing the record to 8-1. So they beat Norway this morning 7-4. They got the Swedes, which is a titanic matchup. That's the wrong word. It's a monumental matchup between Guzhou and Nicholas Edin and Team Sweden. So there you go. Just a quick note on the Growlers going away. It's interesting to hear Dean McDonald, and this is not new for Mr. McDonald, and of course he's the head of Deakin Sports and Entertainment. So with the Growlers gone by the wayside, he said initially in year number 1 they probably saw the writing on the wall, maybe should have pulled the pin then. Why? Because they were unable to control the management of the facility. You've heard this going back and forth for years now. Mr. McDonald potentially, maybe others, it doesn't have to be Dean McDonald, taking over operations at the Mary Brown Centre. You know, the city has, in my personal opinion, some flimsy rationale as to why that's not a helpful idea. You know, the thought is that they might not be actively trying to bring in events like the Briar or the Grand Slam of curling or concerts or trade shows or whatever. But of course they would, because their revenue and their profit is in jeopardy if they don't act aggressively on those fronts. And remember, $7 million subsidy flowing from the city in the form of an operating grant to St. John's Sports and Entertainment, both through the Mary Brown Centre, of course, and the Convention Centre. Back in the day when the juniors were here, the Fog Devils, and the Dobbins brought them to town, I know I'm probably in the minority, but I really enjoyed the junior. There was a few more mistakes, which led to a bit more excitement versus what is very, very structured, heavily structured, for instance, American Hockey League stuff. Back when the Devils were here, ample opportunity. I know this is not the focus at Memorial University. It's really not that big of a sporting entity, all due respect to the Seahawks, with some terrific teams. But had you had a Mon hockey team put in place at the time, real opportunity to expand the fan base, because the juniors get a free ride to play Canadian University hockey. So the first captain of the Fog Devils, Scott Brophy, we might have been able to watch him down at then Mile 1 for some 6 or 7 years in a row. And then, of course, Mon Seahawk hockey fans would have become probably automatically junior fans, because that's their next wave of big incoming superstars. So, and then we saw players like Chris Letang and Brad Marchand and all the rest. But anyway, you want to talk about it. Let's go. Good luck to all participants in the 2024 Female Atlantics in the U18 category. That's taking place beginning today out in Corner Brook. Of course, teams from all across Atlantic Canada. We're represented by the Western Warriors. Cool feature here is one of the organisers, Jennifer Pike, says, it was important to have all female officials on the ice, and they've accomplished exactly that. Apparently they're bringing in refs from all over the country to ensure that every official participating in the U18 Female Atlantics is a female. So good luck to all, and especially the Western Warriors representing this province. All right, quick note. And, you know, I think the lead in the NHL for scoring is somewhere around 130-ish points at the moment. There's a good race between Kucherov and McKinnon and Connor McDavid. But it was on this date in 1986 that the great one, Wayne Gretzky, set an NHL record with his 213th points of the season, went on to finish the season with 215. You can put that one to bed. All right, so Shania Twain tickets go on sale today if you are so inclined and want to go see the mega superstar at the Churchill Park Festival coming up this summer in mid-August. I think it's the 16th and the 17th. And welcome to town, everyone participating in the Canadian Folk Music Festival. So 5 days of showcases, a couple of nights of awards. There's artists here from right across the country, Europe, the United States, Australia. So hopefully they have themselves a fine week on that front. All right, a couple of quick ones to ease into it here this morning. I'm all stuffed up. I don't know if you're watching the baseball. The Jays off to a frustrating start. It's all feast or famine. But it was on this date in 1974. Hammer and Hank Aaron ties Babe Ruth's home run record by hitting 714th in Cincinnati. So he went on to finish his career with 755. In front of him, Barry Bonds. I think there's one of those asterisks, as they say, alongside Mr. Bond's name on that all-time home run list. But there you go. All right, price of fuel. Back to the big important issues. Price of fuel down on some fronts. Diesel's down 8.5%, so that's a nice relief for those using diesel. Gas up 0.5%. No real big adjustment on furnace oil, stove oil, propane. Of course, the conversation regarding the price of fuel dominated nationally is the carbon tax. And we can talk about it. And there's plenty of reasonable conversation. There's tons of mis and disinformation out there about all these types of taxes and all kinds of government policy, but that's the nature of the beast, right? One thing that I think is a fair point when people make it is it really does feel like it's a pretty harsh outcome and process when you have the price of the fuel itself and then the 10 cents federal excise tax and then the provincial tax, which, yes, has been extended as half. It's about 8 cents. And then the carbon tax and then the HST. I mean, I know that's a huge revenue issue for provincial and federal governments, maybe in the neighborhood of maybe $500 million a year for the federal government, but it seems patently unfair. You know, shouldn't the HST simply be on the product itself, and then you can apply our other taxes? I know that reduces government revenue, but at the exact same time, they're talking very clearly at every level about the cost of living and inflation and the price of groceries and the price of fuel and the price of everything else we touch, which has gone up and it's going to be a long time before it comes back to earth. So even just that formulaic change to the process, how and when each tax gets applied, would probably be a significant relief. Well, obviously it would. I mean, just do the math. So I think even on that and that alone, there might be a way for governments to, you know, actually practice what you preach. If you're concerned with my pocketbook, you tell me you are every single day. Every member of the provincial legislatures across the country, every member of parliament on both and all sides. But yet, maybe just that simple formulaic adjustment could be helpful. And on the price of fuels, look, when people talk about a forecast or a prediction, yes, that is very much by definition a guess. Some guesses are equipped with some real data to base their guesses on, but not all. So there's articles that have been flown about, and one of the listeners has sent me an email talking about the predicted use of oil in the future. I don't really know. Some people have told me we're already at peak oil. Some say it's sometime in the early 30s. I have no earthly idea, nor do you. But certain article, like for instance today, demand is about 100 million barrels per day. And the industry itself says they need about $550 billion to $600 billion per year to keep up with the infrastructure required for the current demand. And whatever maybe eases off to 60 million barrels per day by 2050-ish. I don't know, you don't know. Everyone's doing their level best to put forward a guess. And some of the guesses, of course, have a built-in bias and agenda. So on top of that, you know, you wonder whether or not we're going to hear anything from Equinor this year about Beta Nord. You wonder what it's going to look like for exploration, like ExxonMobil is out there this year doing some exploring at significant cost. So they're not doing it for fun. They're doing it because they think there's more oil out there that they can, I was going to say exploit, but produce. On that front, you know, we have to factor in all of these calls for a transition or a just transition and what transition fuels might look like. You know, you hear some people talk about unleashing the potential for Canada's natural gas, of which we're sitting on trillions upon trillions of cubic feet. Then you talk about hydrogen or you talk about hydro. No real clear understanding about much of that. You know, it's certainly not a politician's place to say there's no market for or no business model for LNG, for instance. And yes, we need to know more about what the future of hydro looks like in this province. There's a lot on the line with the 2041 negotiations or conversations with the province of Quebec. And in the world of oil, so I know everyone tells me that the government is killing the oil industry, even though it's record production, record revenue, record profit. It looks like the Trans Mountain Pipeline will indeed be operational by the 1st of May. That was supposed to be finished by 2017. Initial budget was $7.4 billion, now well in excess of $30 billion. And of course, this is not a standalone pipeline. It's twinning an existing pipeline. They've made it through the mountainous segment in British Columbia. And so we have all chipped in over $30 billion for one pipeline from Alberta to the BC coast. Anyway, just thought that was interesting to put it out there for you. And speaking of the transition stuff, it'll be next week on the 9th of April, we're told, that the provincial government is going to bring forward more information or a green light or who knows what about World Energy GH2. And you know the implications of the conversations we've had on that one. Let's get to the obvious. The crab. So it looks quite clear, and we know that the FFAW doesn't have a legal option to strike. We know that they were held accountable by an arbitrator for their role in leading the 6-week tie-up last year. They don't seem to have shied away from it too much, because here's a release from the FFAW and President Greg Priddy. Crab harvesters fully understand the importance of their business to their families and their communities. This injustice must be corrected, and we expect that harvesters will support leadership's position not to fish. So they're pretty much doing the same thing they did last year. Now, the victory that they thought they had in hand a couple of Fridays ago doesn't seem to be the case. And we're anticipating a call with John Effort, who really became the face of the protest and the voice of the protest at Confederation Building, at the Patent Building and otherwise. So the racket here is not about issues regarding outside buyers and or processing capacity or looking at controlling agreements and foreign ownership. It's all boiling right back down to the price. Now, I'm not dismissing those other components, because they were what the fish harvesters were demanding. And in large part, they've been satisfied. But it's the price. For the life of me, I cannot understand how there was not a change to how the price was assigned to one species or another. You know, there was lots of positive conversations, apparently, about changing the format, changing the process. But at the 11th hour, my understanding is the responsibility lies under Labour, which is Minister Bernard Davis. They changed it right back to ensure that last year's flawed process was this year's flawed process. And so consequently, we've got $2.60 a pound being put forward by the ASP. That was selected, and versus $2.83. That's a difference of about $30 million in landed value. So we'll hear what Mr. Effort has to say. But the tie-up is going to be problematic for everybody, isn't it? So the Association of Seafood Producers, and maybe Jeff Loader is available to come on the program today, he has said a few things that has drawn the ire of many, including Mr. Effort, who I think that's what he wants to talk about today. So Mr. Loader says it's simply a minimum guaranteed floor price, and they anticipate there may indeed be some improvement in price for harvesters throughout the course of the crab season. Remains to be seen. But they also talk about the fact that the tie-up is been deemed illegal. I don't know if the individual harvesters give a hoot about that particular ruling, because it sounds like they're not going fishing on the 6th of April. They're not going out there. Then Mr. Loader goes on to talk about not only the fishery as an important component of rural Newfoundland and Labrador, even though there's more seafood offloaded in St. John's Harbour than any bay in the province. So it's not just a rural issue. It also has implications here in the metro region. But he talks about the plant workers calling the association day after day, wondering about their status. He talks about the concept of outside buyers, what that means for more money flowing out of the province. So this is not a simple issue necessarily. If it was, I think we would have had it solved years ago, because it's the furthest thing from solved. It's probably more fractured and contentious than ever before, all based on, I think, what came to a head last year. So we'll hear from Mr. Effort, and we'll welcome Mr. Loader's call as well if you want to take it on. All right, how are we doing out there, Dave? I know John Effort's anxious to get on the program. A couple more quick ones there, but that's a big story. We'll talk an awful lot about police presence and people provincially waiting to hear from the government and the RCMP what their future mandate looks like, and the expansion of the RNC footprint and jurisdictional authority, those types of things. The story that came from Shedji not that long ago, when former parliamentarian Peter Panashwe was arrested. A long-running feud between he and a fellow who took over what he called ownership of his son Ben's home. You know, the exchange of cocaine and cash. Now, there's denial coming from the fellow who currently lives in the home, but Mr. Panashwe was fed up. He said he was going to do it, and he did it. And it beat the windows out of a vehicle out front, consequently got arrested. Now there's been a pretty significant arrest in Northwest River, not that far from Happy Valley Goose Bay. And the RCMP are speaking out about saying, you know, it's not simply good enough for a rumour to ignite an RCMP drug investigation, of which, of course, there's many ongoing. And you can't be giving the public a heads up, oh, here's who we're investigating, because then what? They go underground and no investigation happens, and no arrest takes place, and no seizure or confiscation of drugs and firearms, which comes hand in hand every time we see a big drug bust these days. But people do wonder why. You know, for instance, in some notorious neighborhoods here in the city where I live, people do wonder and ask questions about these things all the day. My email inbox is full of this stuff. Is they say, we know that is a drug den. We know that in that house they're selling drugs. And then they ask a very basic question, of which I don't have an answer for, but if we know, and I'm not a cop, I'm not a detective, I'm not an investigator, if I know that they're selling drugs in that house because they're coming and going all day, we know that the people who live in the house are drug dealers, so how come something isn't done? It's a fair question. I don't know if I've ever heard an answer that would calm the nerves or the worries of residents in the neighborhood who are just trying to get by, just trying to live their life, because with the presence of drugs, of course, comes the possibility and the prevalence of crime, and seriously violent crime. So anyway, you want to take it on. We can do it. Last couple before we get to Mr. Effort. So today represents the 75th anniversary of NATO. And at the beginning in 1949, there was 12 Western countries came together, including Canada. And this was all about what they thought was Russia's expansionism in Europe. And NATO front and center these days, especially when we talk about Russia's aggression and because of potential NATO and current NATO expansion. It's bigger than that conversation, though, because there's the commitment to spend 2% of GDP on the military, of which we spend about 1.27 or 1.29% of our GDP on the military. So it's not just about our position in NATO, which is not just a military defensive alliance. It really does come with plenty of conversations about trade and being allies beyond the military presence. And we are active in Latvia at this moment in time. But I don't know what priority any party or however Canadians think about the military, but the scathing report that we saw last week or the week before about the lack of preparedness. If we were called to action today, based on someone, treading on Article 5 of the NATO treaty, then we're only 58% prepared. We're simply not. We're short somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000 members of the rank and file. So military preparedness, I don't think there's any party out there has said in firm tone and tenor that yes, our party will commit to immediately moving to 2% of GDP. Consequently, not just satisfying our NATO allies, but making the military more prepared, whether it be with equipment and training and or personnel, because we are woefully unprepared at this moment in time. I don't know what kind of concerns you have about the military, but if that's something you're interested in, we can talk about it today. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, John Effort Jr. is in the queue to kick us off talking about the pending tie-up in the crab fishery. Don't go away. And welcome back to the show. Quick traffic note. The Torbay bypass between Flat Rock and the Balling line currently closed due to an accident. Please use an alternate route. So there you go. It's the Torbay bypass between Flat Rock and the Balling line closed. Let's start this morning on the top of the board. Line number 1. Good morning, John Effort. You're on the air. Good morning, John. You're on the air.
Hello.
Good morning to you, sir. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Doing well, thanks. How about you?
Pretty good. Patty, I'd like to start off. I had to basically write something up this morning to make sure that I had numbers and facts correct in response to the interview I watched last night on NTV News. It's not very long, but here goes. Jeff Loader is basing his numbers on a 65% yield rate. Essentially, only 65% of live crab gets sent to market. The fact is, we do not know what the actual yield rate is, but experts say 65% is very conservative. Because we don't know the yield rate and we do not calculate the market share as a percentage of yield, we calculate it as a percentage of the market. Regardless of how he's calculating market share, the formula that ASP proposed is entirely out of line with historic payments at similar market rates. Based on the Blackwood formula, historic sharing arrangements, ASP formula is based on what they think is fair. And it's based on what they want to pay. It's based on what they think we are worth. There is no relationship to what they have offered and what they have paid in the past. ASP caps the market share at 37%. Once the market goes above $8.02, that's a market price, not our price. This is historically low and historically unprecedented. at even higher market rates, the share to harvesters has always increased. So what that means is after expenses are made by all parties, processors, you're talking a share of profits. We had a formula like the one as proposed between 1998 and 2008. We stopped using it because it resulted in a wide pay discrepancy for harvesters. This is a step backwards.
If this is not in line with historical context, what is?
What is in line with historical
either for percentage for yield and or
right.
how that relates to the market price.
The yield has nothing to do. It never has. We have never used yield. The yield of the crab. It's a percentage of what's landed to what's paid for at the market. And we had, or the government, there was a government supported report done by Blackwood, and we used our submission to the panel based on the Blackwood report. And people have said, well, you've modified the Blackwood report, but it also states in the Blackwood report there is some room for modification. One of them saying that the holdback should be on the whole, but it also recognizes the fact that the minimum price set has to be a price that is reasonable to operate on. So it's kind of a contradiction, but it's also a fail-safe that you cannot. That it's understood that we cannot fish for what we can't afford to fish for.
John, for people who are not in the industry, sometimes for folks like yourself or someone who's a doctor talking in medical terms, people might not grasp all of what's being said. So, for instance, what are the holdbacks? How do they work?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
What are the holdbacks and how do they work? I think a lot of people probably don't know how that works.
Okay, well, without the actual scale in front of me, look, what the Blackwood report put forth was to be fair on both sides. Basically, it's a share of risk, and it's a share of reward. So basically, you set a minimum price, and then you use a holdback percentage on, and the way that we have, or FFAW and our negotiating team have formulated, our minimum price for holdback will be $3. So anything below $3, we will not take a holdback on. But then as we get above $3, for the simple fact that we're talking about what's not profitable, but what's reasonable that we can afford to fish for. So after $3, then there's a percentage that gets held back to share the risk. In case the market falls, then you won't receive it. But on the backside of that, what people don't understand is as the market rises and surpasses your holdback and then surpasses beyond that, well, then there's a percentage of the market that will be recaptured and shared fairly by the fishermen, not just the processors.
Understood. So did the FFAW have it right when they put 283 forward?
Again, this is a minimum price, and using the formula that's in the using the formula that's in the Blackwood report, which takes portions of different aspects of historical prices, and using the Urner Barry market real-time market price, that is where it's to as of now, unless there's a change in the Urner Barry today. But as the Urner Barry goes up, that will go up. It's based on a formula that has been basically averaged out over the last number of years that we have used, basically asked as used. We have all used to get a fair minimum price.
Okay, so just talk me through this concept here. So it wasn't just about expanding the processing sector and capacity and controlling agreements and foreign ownership. It was outside buyers was a big part of this protest. And so that seems to have been satisfied. I've heard you say that you've been in contact with a buyer that's willing to pay $3.25 a pound. If that's true, then why this type of reaction to the price set here? Because if you're not even going to have to worry about 2.6 260 or 270 or 283, but you got 325 secured, then help me understand why the reaction has been so forceful. Is it simply about the government changed the process at the 11th hour to set the price? Is it about the contentious relationship with the processors over years and over time? Because if you can get 325, then what difference does it make what they're paying on the wharf in this province?
To your point on what it makes the difference that they're paying on this in this province, right now, and we talk about the 11th hour, the government government ruling that was changed to put us right back to where we were in the beginning. We are now with what we have approved by the provincial government, Department of Fisheries. We are now in a transitional stage. Okay. First off, look, the outside buyers was supposed to be a mechanism to keep everything fair. Okay. Are we going to use outside buyers? Yes. But our main concern, our main goal was to increase capacity in Newfoundland, to make it fair within Newfoundland. And using the outside buyer issue is a part to keep all that under control, to keep the competition here. Now, can John Smith, for an example, sell his crab right now for $3.25 a pound in Nova Scotia or New Brunswick or the Quebec, North Shore, Quebec, whatever, in the Atlantic provinces in Quebec? Yes. Can we right now open up a fishery depending totally on outside buyers? No, that was never the purpose. The purpose was to create competition. But we have to have a fair market share, a fair price here for all of this to work together, to get towards free enterprise. We don't want winners and losers here in regards to our fishermen. We want everybody on the same level playing field. Well,
as much as the hope for fairness and equity be in play, there is going to be some concept of winners and losers here. So when Mr. Loder goes on to say that, they've got concern being voiced by the fish plant workers, he also says with the concept of outside buyers, just how much money might be leaving the province if and when you and some of your fellow fish harvesters are selling to the outside buyer. What do you say to that?
Look, again, our mandate was to increase capacity here, and and again, this is about competition, and if ASP will be fair and give us a fair price, a fair market share, why would we leave? That's a very simple question. Don't put on the fishermen your ability to manipulate people into thinking it's the fisherman's fault. It is not our fault that we have to leave and go to another province to sell our product for a better price. It's yours.
An arbitrator has deemed the tie-up last year as illegal, and so the concept is there will be a tie-up again this year. Now, there has been no evaluation of what financial damages look like, and I guess that'll be a long road before it comes to it, but inevitably, that's going to come out of the pockets of harvesters, whether it be through dues paid to the FFAW or otherwise. So now that ruling is in place, how does that affect how you think about the tie-up? Are you just going to ignore that ruling from last year, or does that factor into your concept of tying it up again this year?
We're not allowed. We don't have the right to strike.
Right.
That's being basically being tabled right now as we speak. Now, if I decide as a harvester that I cannot afford to untie my boat and go fishing, that's my right. That's not a strike. That's my right to do so, not to fish to go broke. Does that make sense?
It does, but I mean, if we include the comment coming from Greg Priddy, of course, the president of the FFAW, this is part of the news release. Crab harvesters fully understand the importance of their business to their families and their communities. This injustice must be corrected, and we expect that harvesters will support leadership's position to not fish. So even if you're doing it based on your own decision making inside your own enterprise, the fact of the matter is now this statement includes everybody. So if they are encouraging people to tie up, as that's how I read that statement, which means that you're somehow implicated here because you're a dues-paying member of the union. So does that factor into your decision?
I made my decision long before there was any press release came out from the FFAW.
What's next? I saw you write a post, John, that said apparently the weather in town is going to be pretty decent on Monday, especially around sunrise. Does that mean that's when we're going to see the next protest?
I'll touch on that briefly, but there's one more thing that I wanted to touch on. It was also a comment was made by Jeff Loader yesterday as to the quality of our seafood products here in Newfoundland, and that our crab specifically is substandard to the rest of Atlantic Canada. I really don't think that would be that must be just a statement he made from his own feelings, because why would a seafood producer group be promoting their products as substandard? And next question is, why would the provincial government talk about promoting seafood products in Newfoundland and passing millions of dollars to ASP to promote our products, when it seems to me, and I'm sure everybody else, that they don't believe in their own product? And I'm going to tell Mr. Loader right now, our products are second to none in the world. We have the best fishery, we have the best products in the world, bar none.
Is there not a difference between snow crab, for instance, fished in Nova Scotia or off Nova Scotia and this province? They talk about more barnacles or what have you, and that's even coming from industry at large, not, one province against another. So is there not a difference in crab? Of course, the meat is the meat, but when you talk about processing, they have to include things like the presence or the prevalence of barnacles. So is that not a reality?
Look, I've spoke to several buyers outside of Newfoundland. I spoke to a lot of fishermen here. I mean, I don't do anything without research, and I've myself years ago I brought crab right to market in Louisbourg, Nova Scotia, and that was on my mind when I was going across the Gulf with a load of crab. I've always been told that our crab is not as good as mainland crab. And I was really, really afraid and I sat in the boat after we offloaded, waiting for it to be processed. And I didn't make my concerns known to the buyer. That would be pretty counterproductive. But anyway, when he came out after and came out to settle up, I said, so how was it? He said, good. I said, so compared to what you're doing here, belonging to, we'll say mainland crab, Nova Scotia crab, what's the difference? He said, none. Also, and to realize that, yep, there are differences in different areas, some specific areas, and pockets, not whole areas, but there could be a pocket in an area here off of Newfoundland that may have more barnacle crab or what you would consider to be lower quality. But on the same breath, I've spoke with fishermen in the Maritimes and Quebec. They have the same issues. They're not every area, not every spot, we'll say, that you fish, do you get the same quality crab. It's just a normal process in the life cycle and the species of crab and probably most fish. The only difference is we are the largest producer. Sure. We are the largest harvesters. So is there more by numbers? Probably yes. Is there more by percentage? No.
Last one, John, because I do have to get going. I'm sure you do as well. So the dock price apparently has been settled in Nova Scotia at $2.50. Is that accurate? And if that's the case in Nova Scotia, how can we expect to be getting, say, for instance, $3.25 or even whatever, somewhere around $3 this year in this province?
That's totally false. I haven't. That was put out weeks ago. That may be a minimum price that is being paid to some corporate-controlled enterprises, but the real price now that I can see, and I've done my research, is well north of $3.
I appreciate the time, John. Keep us in the loop.
Thank you.
You're
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, caller there wants to talk about the courts. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Caller, you're on the air. Line number 2, caller, are you there? Well, you're on hold. Let's keep going. Let's go to line number 3. Wayne, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning to you.
My name is Wayne Harris. I've been trying to find a contractor to come here in Markland and do a wheelchair ramp for me and put a door and a door box in that if we get any amount of wind coming down over across the garden, the door blows open. You got to keep the door knifed. We do have a grant for to have this done. And I'm after making a lot of calls, but no replies.
You can't get a contractor to come out and do that for you? And you're willing to pay?
Like I said, the government grant is here. There was one fella come, and then he never got back to us. The rest of them never got back to me. They called, or I called them, or whatever. They called me back, and they never showed. I don't know what it is, but Newfoundland, years ago, we used to have no trouble getting something done here. But now, you can't.
This has been ongoing for quite a while. The contractors are absolutely up to their neck in business. And so consequently what happens as a result is, generally speaking, the smaller jobs are not that interesting to them. So they will take the biggest jobs to pay the biggest money. Not to say that there's not good contractors out there willing to do things like your job, but they are really busy, and consequently they are probably not interested in some smaller jobs. So that's possibly what's at play here, Wayne. Not to say that we can't try to help you get a contractor. So if you are someone that is a contractor and can install a wheelchair ramp and help fix up that door for Wayne and his family, Wayne Harris out in Markland, get in touch with us. We'll give you Wayne's phone number and away we go. How's that?
That sounds good to me. Thank you very much. That's Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome.
I know we were here for 3 years fighting, trying to get our roof done from rain and everything else. And last year, it got done. And right now we don't have to use buckets to catch the water from coming down through the porch or in the bedroom. But that was done by a company over in Chapel Arm, and it was well appreciated.
Well,
but he don't do wheelchair ramps.
Okay. Well, let's hope this call gets a contractor in and around Markland to come out and give you a hand. So, folks, if you are one said contractor and can help Wayne out, call me or call David, and we'll connect the two of you and see if we can get this done for you, Wayne.
That sounds good to me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Let us know.
Have a good day.
It's the same to you both. Bye-bye. Here we go. So anyone can do that? Give us a call. Let's go to line number 2. Try again. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Paddy. Thanks for taking the call.
No problem.
I'm a retired GP, and like the monkey said, we're getting his tail cut off. It won't be long now, i.e. death. But that's okay. I've got 7 or 8 things on my list here that I just wanted to bring up, and I'll just touch on some of them. First one might be the state of healthcare, of course, which, the big thing is a shout-out to the Telegram and to PBS and BBC. Line 408, I think, on Bell Aligned. Anyhow, there's 7 or 8 things. First is this mess of the healthcare system and the nurses' situation. Number 2 is intimate partner violence, and I'd like to speak to that a bit. The WEGH2 industrial wind business and Minister Davis' dilemma coming up soon. Hopefully he'll do whatever is right. And I know that I don't know the answer to it, but it's a mess. School violence, number 4. 6-year-olds with telephones, number 5. Financial messes with the Bank of Canada versus the government spending more money. And there was a number 7 about designer phage, which is a virus that they made to treat bacteria in a person's body, and it would only attack that bacteria and kill it. I can't help wondering, can they make viruses that could target cancer cells? Anyhow, that's the thing, Paddy, so you take it from there.
That's a lot, and there are some pretty big issues, all of which are of importance, no doubt about that. Why don't you tell me the one that you most want to talk about and see how deep we can get into it? Go ahead.
It's the one that was frightening on Saturday, March the 30th, Telegram, page 1 and page 2. This poor woman was killed, And Singleton, the lawyer, told Provincial Court Judge Harold Porter that he should be careful about not letting this alleged murderer out on bail. The judge gave 3 reasons why he felt that bail would be appropriate. The second one was, and I'm reading this from the Telegram, the court must determine whether the accused is at risk of committing more crimes. The judge said he had no evidence to suggest that this guy didn't meet these criteria. Singleton, the lawyer, said to the provincial judge that the public would lose confidence in our justice system if this alleged murderer were released on bail. He was released on bail, and he successfully did kill the woman. The blood of that poor woman is on Provincial Judge Harold Porter's case, as far as I'm concerned.
It's an awful story. I mean, and then we go back to the first-degree murder charge that's alleged against this guy who killed his wife. That body was found in a house down in Outer Cove.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Right, I'm just giving folks the context to say, the exact story we're talking about. He told her he was going to kill her.
That's right, and she said that he's going to kill me.
Yeah, the story is absolutely dreadful. There's other stories. There's a story out in Corner Book about a high-risk offender named Matthew O'Quinn. He's been deemed, he's on a long-term supervision order of 10 years. We've got high-risk offenders out there. I mean, we know the penitentiary is somewhere in the neighborhood of 60% of the inmates are on remand. They haven't been found guilty of anything as of yet. But we know, especially when we talk about violence against women, protection orders, supervised bail, it's not worth the paper it's printed on. If they're committed and they're going to follow through and hurt or harm or kill their partner, they're going to do it. They don't care what the conditions of bail are, because they're set to do exactly what that fella did. And he told the wife in no uncertain terms, I am going to kill you.
Yep.
Dreadful story.
Yep. I don't know what the answer to it is. Who makes laws? Is it the federal government?
Yes, the Criminal Code of Canada comes from the federal government.
I mean,
Same thing with
how many more intimate partner violence must our Newfoundland population and Canada, I guess, in the world put up with? Somewhere along the line, there's got to be something else that'll fix things.
The trick there is that the criminal code can talk about sentencing guidelines and what constitutes what type of crime and those definitions, but when it comes to bail, I think that's always going to be up to the decision making of the justice, of the judge. Now, because I don't know if you can, put into writing into the law that says, if this man says, I will kill you, that means no bail can be offered. I think that's always going to be judicial decision making authority, but not to say that that's the right thing, because obviously in this case it's the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's a mess. There's no doubt about it. So we're in a hell of a world between Trump and climate change and democracy at risk and all the rest of it. It is a total mess. As I say, I won't be allowing that far into it. But if I was young and wanted to have children, you have to wonder just how good it is an idea to do,
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that, because I have children and I
have two.
Yeah, I have two.
They're all older now.
Yeah, my boys are in their 20s, but still, still think of them as my children. Of course they are, but I still think about them as kids when, of course, they're full-grown adults.
Well, you worry about their grandchildren, eh?
I worry about lots of stuff. I think it's kind of nature of the beast for what I do, but I know that kind of level of worry and frustration or anxiety is pretty commonplace, because there's lots of stuff that constitute a tinderbox. The world is in turmoil, militarily speaking or otherwise. There's financial concerns up and down the line right across the world, certainly in this country, and people's emotions are on a knife's edge. It really feels that way. Very tenuous kind of stuff. I really appreciate the list you brought forward this morning. Do me a favor, join us again next week to pick your next top priority, and we'll go through that one. How's that sound?
Okay, I'll probably do that. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time. Take care.
Take care.
All right, bye-bye. All right, let's go ahead and take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 2 and say good morning to the Executive Director at Child Care Now. That's Morna Ballantyne. Good morning, Morna. You're on the air.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
Happy to have you on the show. Is it Ballantyne or Ballantine?
It's Ballantyne.
Welcome to the program.
Ballantyne. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's get into a release that was brought forward by your group. What's the crux?
the crux of what we're doing right now. My organization has been around since 1982, and we have been advocating for a high-quality, inclusive, affordable system of early learning and childcare that would be available and accessible to all. We've made huge progress in pursuit of that objective, especially since 2021, when the federal government announced a very ambitious program to build a Canada-wide system of early learning and childcare. But right now we have a problem where licensed childcare is much more affordable. Of course, that's not a problem for parents. It's a really good thing for parents, good thing for families, good thing for communities. But getting access to one of these now more affordable spaces is very, very difficult. Wait lists at childcare centers continue to go up. And so that's the big challenge that we're working on right now. So that's the situation, and that we heard a good announcement from the federal government last week, where the government is already, the federal government is already transferring significant amounts of money to provinces and territories to build this Canada-wide system of early learning and childcare. But they announced that there will be additional money available directly to those who provide not-for-profit and public childcare services through a loan and grant program that will go into effect a little bit down the road.
Yeah, and they've talked about monies for training initiatives. They've talked about loan forgiveness and those types of things for ECEs are willing to work in rural, remote parts of the country. But from where I sit, Morta, and my boys are growing up, I don't need daycare, but I understand the importance of it for young families. Even when we talk about people deciding to stay in this province, even when we talk about the need for two of the parents to be working because of the cost of living related matters. Affordability was the easy one. It's easy enough to say we're going to put aside X number of dollars to create $10 a day of daycare, but without working concurrently at the exact same time with the accessibility issue, then we've created an even bigger logjam than we had prior. So conceptually, very wise. And I mean, it's well documented what it means for economic activity, expanded tax base, returning to work, GDP. But if you can't find a space, it doesn't matter how much it costs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is really good to have more affordable childcare for those who access it now, which is still a significant number. But you're absolutely right that the big challenge is now to grow the system of affordable childcare. And that's a big, big challenge. It's not easy to do. First of all, building new centers takes time, especially in these economic times where construction is difficult and very difficult in remote and northern communities, but people need it now. So there's a lot of impatience. So we're really hoping that, governments, the provincial government, the case of Newfoundland and Labrador, really works on building an effective expansion plan and puts priority on the communities and populations that need it most first. And develops a plan that goes well beyond 2025, 2026, because right now the funding agreements between the two levels of government end in 25, 26, and it's going to take more time to actually make childcare available to everybody who wants it.
In this province, some 80% of children live in what they call a childcare desert, and we probably need around 1,000 more early childhood educators in this province to meet the current demand, let alone incorporating what the future demand will look like. There's been some adjustment to the pay grid for early childhood educators, and yes, some loan forgiveness is coming, and there's been some bonuses and signing bonuses and the like, but there's been a recent survey done by the Federation of Labour in this province that says, one of the highline numbers is 42% of the province's early childhood educators are considering finding a new job because of low wages, lack of benefits, whether it be dental, sick days, or otherwise. So again, when we talk about simply putting dollars and cents in play, it might not cover all of the bases for people to be encouraged to stay as an early childhood educator or to enter the field. Another issue that we're talking about here is the uncertainty of their future. The job security is probably there, but it's the lack of a pension. So if they're going to be performing such a critical role, I don't suggest they should be paid, for instance, what a grade 6 teacher with their master's degree makes necessarily, but even simply to be part of the provincial pension plan would be a very attractive option for someone to consider early childhood education. 90% of the child's brain is developed by the time they're 5 years old. Their role is crucial, but yet we don't treat them as that.
I absolutely agree, Patty. You have it down perfectly. And in the area of pensions, I think the survey that you referred to showed that in the sector, only 80% of the staff have access to a pension plan. That is a really important piece to encourage educators to stay in the field, because when how pension plans work, for every year of service, you're contributing to a plan which you're going to get back on retirement, and so it's a big incentive to stay in the field. And in Nova Scotia last year, they announced at the end of the year a really good pension plan, and so that government is including the early childcare sector in a good defined benefit plan. So if Nova Scotia can do it, we say every province can do it.
Well, of course they can, and seemingly we pretend that we can't accomplish certain things. Like in Nova Scotia, they've got legislative changes regarding you can't separate couples upon entering long-term care. Now, it's not as fundamental as that, and they've figured this out regarding pensions for early childhood educators. I get people push back fairly frequently that said, if you have kids, you have to take care of them. You have to be able to afford them yourself. It's not anybody else's responsibility. But I try to remind them that the research is out there. I have no skin in the game. I do not need daycare. But the numbers, whether you look at reports coming from McGill or from Laval University, talking about what the implications of affordable, accessible childcare has been, it's good for all of us. It just really is.
It is, absolutely. It's very good for the economy. And as you say, all kinds of studies have shown that, and the studies don't change, that for, public dollars that are invested, you get more than twice the return in economic benefits for the entire community, the entire province. So it's a really, really important and good investment. It helps individuals, of course, individual families, and as to providing public funds for service that directly benefits parents and children, that to me, that kind of benefit should not be underestimated. When children are in safe, caring environments, good environments, that pays benefits for years to come, right into adulthood. And again, there's all kinds of studies that have confirmed that fact. So it's good for the economy. It's good for children. It's good for parents. As long as it's a high-quality program, we have to make sure that we're not creating new childcare spaces just to meet targets. They have to be high quality. They have to be inclusive. And they really, first and foremost, have to be, based on the child's needs and be responded to the child, because that's, of course, children are everything.
100%. Now, if someone is lucky enough to be able to, through the maternity and paternity, and have the financial wherewithal to be able to stay home until the child goes to kindergarten, that's fantastic. But on top of a real good daycare is the concept of socialization, learning how to share, structured early childhood education, as opposed to potential for a VCR to be the babysitter, that type of stuff, or VCR, I'm aging myself. So there's a lot more to it simply than a place for your child to be during the course of the work day or whatever the case may be. Morna, I'll give you the final thoughts before we move on to the news break.
Well, I would just want to share with you a conversation I had last night, actually, from somebody from Denmark who's responsible for the municipal childcare programs in that country, because the childcare services are directly operated by municipalities. And she said in Denmark there's a legal entitlement to access high-quality childcare services, and the uptake is 93% of children between the 6 months of age until school age are registered in the programs. So no matter what the family circumstances are, whether a mother or father or other guardian is in the paid labor force or needs childcare or not, in Denmark, where it's available, high quality, people want it and people take it, and the benefits have been enormous in that country. Economic, social, as you say, inclusion, really important goals of early learning and childcare. And so I'm really, really excited and pleased to see all levels of government now paying a lot more attention, building a system. We just have to make sure it's built in the right way.
I appreciate making time for the show, Morna. Stay in touch.
Thanks, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. That's Marta Valentine. She's the Executive Director at Child Care Now. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're talking pensions and the difficulty in getting a lotto license from the province or whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to the independent member of the House of Assembly, representing the folks of Mount Pearl Southlands. That's Paul Lane. Paul, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Morning to you.
Yes, Paddy, I wanted to call in, and I mean, we've had a number of conversations, obviously, over the last number of years, very many, and then a lot of subjects have been, pretty intense and important to people. The subject I want to talk about this morning may, for some people, come across as, not the most important thing in the world to be talking about compared to our issues with healthcare and finances and everything else, but it is an important issue nonetheless for a lot of people, and that is the issue around lottery licensing. And I would just preface my remarks by saying that when you think of the great work of the Janeway Foundation, the Salvation Army, Ronald McDonald House, and I can go on and on, the Lions Clubs and all the stuff that they do, the Kinsmen, the Kinets, and on and on and on. And just think about the amazing work that they do in the community, the amazing programs they deliver, the services they provide. And just think about how that, what our communities would be like if these organizations did not exist. I would suggest that it wouldn't be such a great place to live in compared to what we have. And I guess that brings me to the point that in order for these groups and organizations to be able to deliver all these services, they need money to do so. And quite often for charitable organizations, the revenue source, that a big revenue source for them, is through ticket draws and other events that require lottery licensing. So it is critical for a lot of these organizations to literally keep the lights on in some cases, and certainly to deliver all the services that we all enjoy in our community. So lottery licensing is very, very important in that regard. So
I'd add another couple of lists. It's one thing to go with the big charitable organizations, but minor and amateur sports organizations even want to get a 50-50 license and all these types of things. Everyone needs the exact same license.
100%. And like I say, the list is an endless list, and they all have important roles to play in our society, and those lottery licenses are critical to those organizations to do the great work that they do. So it's important, therefore, that we have a system that if lottery licenses are required, and we all understand there has to be, why there's lottery licenses and checks and balances and everything else to make sure everything's legit and above board, all important stuff. But I've heard from a number of people, I guess, over the last couple of years, really, about an issue with turnaround times on lottery licenses. I was sort of under the impression that it had been addressed because I've heard the Minister, Studley, talk about, their 2-week turnaround time and so on. But I had a constituent reach out to me just the other day, and I've had a couple actually, and apparently this issue is still not resolved. And now what's happening is that, we're having organizations, for example, that are planning a fundraising event, putting in a license perhaps a month and a half in advance, supposed to be a 2-week turnaround time, just to find out at the last minute, basically. Well, first of all, they call to check on it after 2 weeks go by, and they're not getting it. So then they start calling, can't get anybody to respond to them, to answer the phone, whatever the case might be, in a lot of cases, or get them any answers. And then eventually they end up with a letter saying, due to volumes and so on, sorry, we couldn't process your license, even though that was in a month or a month and a half ahead of time. Couldn't process it in time, so I guess you're going to basically have to cancel your event. And then they give them like a 1-week time. If you want to resubmit to us the ticket with a new date on it, or you want to resubmit like the information on the event you're having for a new scheduled date, do so within 7 days, and we can just renew your file and get your license. If not, you have to go through the process to apply all over again. And so this is what apparently is continuing to happen. And obviously it's having a detrimental effect on a number of organizations that really depend on those fundraising activities. So I did reach out to the minister. She gave me the line of, well, I wasn't aware of that, and it's supposed to be a 2-week turnaround time. she is very much aware of it, because I even got a letter sent to me where that was sent to her, advising her that the problem is existing and so on. But anyway, at the end of the day, I hope that someone from the department is listening, and I hope they're going to resolve this matter for all of these organizations that depend on lottery licensing, because, as I say, it's critical to them, and they wouldn't be able to exist in many cases if they didn't have it. And so in that regard, even though it might not seem like a huge issue compared to healthcare woes and so on, really it is very important, because it affects everybody. It affects their kids and people, that depend on various services and programs that these organizations offer to be able to continue to do their work. So I'm just calling on certainly Minister Sudley and the government to, if you need to clear up a backlog, I was told that there's a significant backlog there now. If you need to do something, if you need to rearrange some staffing or something, even on a temporary basis, to clear up the backlog and then move forward from there, then that's what you need to do. But it's not fair to these organizations, and it's definitely not fair to all of the people in our community all throughout Newfoundland and Labrador that depend on these programs and services.
Yeah, I mean, I've been involved, and it is frustratingly long, the turnaround. And I would suggest the vast majority of applications for a lotto license are for very small events, small 50-50s, small ticket raffles, things that people in some parts of the province, some parts of the country, they don't even bother getting a lotto license. But to do it right and to be above board and to be held to account and be able to have a lotto license number on the bottom of your ticket to give people assurance that everything is above board, it should be pretty fundamental. If I'm putting 250 tickets to win a 10-speed bike, it should not take a month for that to turn around. If I'm having an application for a ticket raffle at my fundraising dinner, which I don't need a lottery license for, it should be pretty fundamental, because a lot of the repeat applications are the same people, same organizations, same ticket raffle, same 50-50s. So it becomes unnecessarily complicated, which I think is part and parcel with dealing with government, unfortunately, on a lot of things. Paul, last one before I let you go. There is a recommendation from the Commission for a $25,000 raise for members of the House of Assembly. Is that the right thing to do? Is it the right time for it to happen?
Well, I'm going to say that, let me preface it with this. I will give you a direct answer, but let me preface it with this. First of all, I would say in the minds of a lot of people, and politicians in general over the years have been their own worst enemies on some of this, and some of the actions that have happened and the childishness that happens in the House of Assembly that, I guess, give politicians in general a bad name. So I would say, in the minds of many people out there, there's never a good time. So that's the first thing I'll say. There will never, ever be a good time. If we were swimming in cash, which we're not, but if we were, people would still say you don't deserve it, you should take a pay cut. I understand that's just the nature of the beast. I would also say that if you were to look at the fact that, a second point, I guess, is that when I got elected and when I signed up to be elected, I knew what the salary was. I didn't do so with any expectation of an increase, so I'll just put that out there. But, the other thing is, on the other side of it, in trying to be fair, I suppose, about the scenario, is that if you look at everybody else in government, from teachers to police officers to every public servant, doctors, healthcare workers, over a 15-year period, everybody has received increases. The only group that never received a dime that I'm aware of since that period of time would be MHAs. So if you're trying to look at it in a fair, unbiased manner, and I understand, I guess I'm in a conflict of interest because I'm talking about including myself here, and I realize that. But in fairness, I think that you could be argued that there is justification that there should be some recognition of this period of time with no increase.
But that's a self-inflicted rule.
I do feel 25,000 is an excessive amount, certainly in one fell swoop. I do like the idea of tying future increases to the CPI, so we don't have to be going down this road every 4 years and voting our own selves a raise or not voting our own selves a raise. But I think 25,000, to me, I wouldn't feel comfortable in supporting that. But I would feel comfortable in supporting a lesser amount, maybe 10% as opposed to 25%. I would be comfortable to say that would be fair. But 25,000, I wouldn't be comfortable in supporting that amount.
This one really feels like this.
In my mind.
Fair enough. This one really feels like the much akin to the tuition at Memorial University. So 15 years without a raise, I get it. I don't begrudge politicians a raise if they haven't had one in 15 years. But we went 22 years with a tuition freeze in place. Consequently, what happened when that went away? A huge increase in tuition. 15 years of a pay freeze on MHAs, a huge whopping increase. Tying things to national, regular, staggered, rational increases makes much more sense than all of a sudden we've got 25,000 versus a story that might say MHAs this year get an $1,800 raise. People would probably not bat an eye, but 25,000 jumps out because even if the national increase across the country last year was 4.2%, I didn't get that, but 4.2%, and consequently the members of Parliament get that increase. And this report after 15 years, 25 feels like a big number. I don't begrudge a pay raise to anybody who works, especially when they haven't had one for 15 years. But it's a self-inflicted wound. But anyway, Paul, I appreciate your thoughts on the Lotto license and the pay raise. Appreciate the call.
Thank you, Paddy. All the very best. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Paul Lane, independent member, Mount Pearl Southlands. When we come back, we're talking pensions. Don't go away. Oh, no, Sonia's going to be next. She's been there for a long time. She wants to talk about the cost of transporting a body from another province. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Sonia, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. I'm a first-time caller.
Welcome to the program. Take your time. Go right ahead.
This is so not a call that I want to make, but I'm reaching out to the general public. Last Thursday, March 28th, my nephew tragically passed in Ontario after fighting a long battle of childhood mental health issues and ultimately turning to drugs. He left his family and friends in Newfoundland and traveled to Ontario searching for help. Ended back in New Brunswick, returned back to Ontario again, where ultimately his life tragically ended at 23 years old. We as a family were trying to get his body home, but being turned down by the government. The government is telling us there's no help for us because even if we were on income support, which we're not, we're tax-paying people, but we're just barely getting by, like most people. But the government has told us there's no help. Even if we get his body home, they won't help with funeral costs, so all the expenses left up to the family, which to get him home and to get him buried, we're looking at $10,000 to $12,000. We don't have that kind of money. But how do we get him home to lay him to rest and to get closure for our family? So I've started a GoFundMe page, and the GoFundMe page can be found on Guardians of Recovery Facebook group. And I thank Tina for posting that there. And I'm just pleading with the general public that if any way that they can help, that they would reach out to us.
First off, my condolences on your loss. It's to follow a death of a loved one and the grief that comes with it, with the financial complications, is really a lot for anyone to have to bear. Hopefully you'll have some luck with this plea to the general public. I don't know where to point you because, there is such a thing called CanadianFunerals.com, and I think they do have some sort of financial support that may indeed be available. So I'll ask you to try that, unless you already have.
No, I haven't heard of that one, not Canadian Funerals, but actually at the funeral home here, they did tell me that because he's at a province and he's over 18, that they wouldn't offer us any help.
There is a death benefit inside of Employment and Social Development Canada, a federal program. If someone over the age of 18 has been contributing to the Canadian pension plan, there is the possibility to get $2,500 from the federal government. It may take...
He hasn't.
Pardon me?
He hasn't.
He hasn't. Okay. I'm just trying to think about the options that I can help point you to.
He actually just started work not long. Well, he was working, then he was off work, then he was working. He had just started back to work and was trying to get back on track again. And then we got this news. So you're telling me Canadian funerals?
Yeah. Now, of course, like anything, be careful as you try to navigate this. And but I have put someone onto this before, and they said they got some financial support, but this was years ago, and I can't really remember exactly what they were able to avail of. But just give it a try and be cautious as you try to navigate it. And give the Facebook page out there one more time for where your GoFundMe has been posted by Tina.
The GoFundMe has been posted on Guardians of Recovery, the Facebook group.
Okay. Sonia, let me know if you have any luck. And if not, I'll try to figure out some other potential options that can be of support.
Thank you so much, Patty.
My condolences on your loss.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Sonia. Take care and good luck.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Will I just get to the break on time and come back for John and for Dexter? John wants to talk about pensions. I'm not sure exactly what about it, but there is a piece of legislation tabled in Parliament. I don't know if this is John's topic, but the federal government has indeed tabled legislation that would delay the next federal election by a week. So if you're elected in 2019, you're not eligible for your pension. If you get elected twice and serve 6 years, you're not eligible until the 21st of October of 2025. The federal election on paper at this moment is scheduled for October the 20th of 2025. So they've tabled legislation to delay it a full week to October the 27th. And consequently, if that happens, 80 more members of Parliament will be eligible for their pension if they're successful in the next election. So it's really extraordinary stuff. And I saw one reference that says, if you don't want people to consider and to call politicians shady, then don't do shady stuff, because that really comes across as really quite shady, or not, if not the epitome of. Let's check in on the Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. Let's take a break right on time like I always do. When we come back, John, you're next to talk about pensions. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 1. John, you're on the air.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Doing okay. How about you?
First of all, I want to say condolences to that lady who just called. I don't think she's going to have too much problem, because Newfoundland Labradorians are very generous people. But anyway, what I was calling is about the pension. I mean, they mentioned the $25,000 for the MHAs for the province, and then the MPs is also getting an increase. But there's no say on the old age pensions for the old people out there. They gave it. Us, or like, because I'm old, they're giving us an increase of 4.4% on the CPP, and then a 0.8% on old age pension. That's in 2024, according to what I'm reading here. I mean, there's no talk about pensions or increase of pension for old people. And to tell you the truth, there's not all old people that's getting pensions, because if you're making so much money, like for instance, like people who've got lots of money, millionaires or something, they don't get old age pensions, and
well, they get CPP, but they won't qualify for old age security, the GIS. Yes. So inside old age security, the increase from April of 23 to April of 24 is about 3.2%, is my understanding. And yes, the CPP, which is indexed to the Consumer Price Index, so that's going up. There is also a change in the baseline personal exemption level in this year for contributions to CPP. So there are some changes, but no whopping big increase for fixed income seniors. That's for sure.
That's right. There's not, and then a very, very little increase. I mean, you're talking about pennies compared to what the MHAs and them was getting. I mean, they're not getting it yet, but they're asking for $25,000. Come on, give it. It's time for them to start looking at other avenues. The senior citizens. I mean, we spend money out there. I mean, we buy groceries, we buy gas and stuff like that. It's time for them to come and look at the senior citizens. I mean, saying that we need an increase. We need a little bit more than what they're offering us. I mean, it's ridiculous what I'm seeing.
Well, it's when you talk about the increases that come, and they're There's been slight increases over the years, but the problem with it now is that it hasn't kept up with the increase in cost of living. You know, it might have felt like the increase was meaningful-ish in years past, but now, like most people, I mean, the increase of about 4.8% on the CPP this year, and parliamentarians getting a 4.2% increase in their salary. The problem there is fixed-income seniors. I mean, we're talking about a baseline salary in the six figures for a backbencher, member of Parliament, very much unlike the reality for a lot of seniors who rely in full on their CPP, their old age security, and the guaranteed income supplement. You know, some might have other monies stocked away, may indeed own their own home, of which there's a significant number of seniors in the country that own their own home. But the increase to the pensions really doesn't help cover the increase in the cost of living. I agree.
You're right. And not only that, when a senior when a senior gets put in a home, that money goes to that home. I mean, that helps the economy. Because the people who's working in them homes to take care of senior patients, I mean, you add all this up. I mean, it helps people. It helps it helps the economy. It helps everybody else. I mean, an increase, the increases all the wages for everybody else, but all the senior systems always back and never, ever, or very little is mentioned about senior citizens.
Yeah, there'll be some focus, but even in the most recent provincial budget, there is some confusion out there about some of the monies that they talked about regarding seniors' benefits. So there was one pot of about $10 million. We're not entirely sure exactly what the money's going to be spent on. Now, the minister responsible, in this case Tom Osborne talking about it, is saying that there'll be more details coming. What they're thinking it's going to do is they call, quote-unquote, what is a comprehensive well-being plan for seniors. There are home repairs, modifications, monies for caregivers, for taking care of people with high care needs, grants for low-income seniors, snow clearing, grocery delivery, and other helps in the home. But we don't even really know who is eligible for that, how it's going to work, how the money is going to flow. So sometimes there's as much confusion as there is money on the table. And on that part, I have no idea what the money is for.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that one. Yeah, no, I thank you very much for your being there for the people, because I know you are a people person, because every time I talk to you, it's always positive, and I thank you very much.
I appreciate making time for the show. Stay in touch, John.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. You know, just going down through it, so... You know, that is the headline. It's the $10 million for a seniors' wellbeing plan. It'd be helpful to know exactly what that means. So there is a couple of other things here that maybe seniors might not be aware of at this moment in time. And this is not tooting anybody's horn. This is just some of the numbers we've seen in the budget. So the home heating supplement, $500 to residents who rely on furnace or stove oil to heat their home. That's being maintained. The continued removal of 15% of retail's tax on home insurance, which applies to everyone, not just seniors, as far as I know. $85 million for income supplement. 15% increase over the last 2 years. So supplemental benefits, that supplement benefits about 150,000 families and individuals. Here's one. There's over $70 million for the seniors benefit, which includes a 15% increase over the last 2 years. That benefit applies to about 50,000 seniors aged 65 and older. Then there's the federal and provincial fuel switching and energy efficiency incentive, which remains in place. That's about $130 million. And that, of course, not simply for seniors, but there are some of the benefits that maybe we haven't been talking about enough. Let's go to line number 3. Dexter, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Paddy.
Good morning to you.
Just wanted to provide an update regarding the Rocky Brook Bridge near Badger Lake. We've submitted various documents and asked to the Department of FFA. So we certainly understand that they've been dealing with the fishery and that kind of thing. So, but basically, I just wanted to. We understand the financial position of the province and that there are much greater asks than bridges. And that's why we provided the solution. And the solution was no money to come from the FFA budgets. And basically, they would have to sell 10 to 20 lots of land, and that would fund a new bridge. We haven't had any responses from government other than they are no longer replacing any assets that they don't need for forestry. And we know where the forestry sector is too. It's pretty much gone. And they want to remove all assets from their books. So this is, all residents of the province should be aware of this, is that, once these bridges are not able to be used anymore. Basically, the government is saying that they will not be. So this is going to affect the tourism of the province and many others.
So the bridge is closed?
So the bridge is closed. And not only have we not getting any response, they basically are telling us that, when they want to remove this from the books, is that they want us to take ownership. So they may help provide something. I mean, we gave them the solution, and that's simply sell some more lots from Crown Lands, which was we all purchased in a public draw from Crown Lands. That deemed year-round access, outright ownership of the land. This wasn't just we went to Crown Lands, looking for a piece of land in the middle of nowhere. This was, it's a highly sought area, and basically, there is a lot of development. There's people that have moved back from Alberta the last couple of years and reinvested a lot of money into areas such as this. And basically, the government is saying is that they want us to take ownership of the bridge.
Is this part of the trailway?
Yes.
Okay. And
it's on a resource road. And the resource road, since I've been up there for 10 years, I mean, we spent over $100,000 on the resource road, and the department has not spent 5 cents. Right, so there's a miscommunication. People come back, people look at these areas and say, okay, it's a resource road, it's going to be fixed up. But I mean, we've done a lot of work on a resource road, and this is only, by the way, the bridge is only 500 yards from the TCH.
Is there another access point?
The government says that there is an access point, which is through the Groom Snowmobile Trail at about a 25. It's not even, you wouldn't take a vehicle in there. Maybe a quad, but then, in the wintertime, it's Groom Trail, so you're not allowed to snow. You wouldn't be allowed to clear it,
Yeah.
And there was Newfoundland Power tried to come up that route only a few weeks ago, and it was all flooded out. They couldn't even get through it on Skidoo.
Yeah, so that's another resource road. I can't for the life of me. I don't even know if I've ever known the name of it. I'm just trying to picture, because I know where you are is, 20 kilometres from Badger or something like that?
We're just west of Catamaran Park. So, no, we're only, 5-6 kilometres west of Badger.
Okay. So, I don't know. Go ahead.
The other point that I wanted to bring up here, right, is that last year, 2023, there were 6 houses built in the town of Grand Falls, Windsor. Okay, and that was probably a low number, due to the fact of increasing prices and so on and so forth. That's a town of 15,000. We've had 7 to 10 people now with land purchase. You may have purchased it 5 years ago. May have purchased it last year, that are ready to build, and not even be able to bring a piece of equipment in there now. So whether there's many others who are looking at, landscaping, garages, the economic benefits, are very high in these kind of areas, right?
Yeah. So if they're saying you should be able to take care of it yourself, and you suggest, you sell a couple of lots from Crown Lands and go towards cost coverage. When we talk about repairing a bridge so it's passable, that really kind of sounds like there's a pretty significant price tag attached. Has anyone come out to give you an idea what that is?
We've obtained 2 professional quotes. Okay. The first one would be to restructure. So the beams that are there are totally good. Okay. Restructure the bridge, we're looking at $500,000. A new Bailey Bridge, you're looking at about $1 million. Okay, so what doesn't really make sense to me either is that Here's the department indicating that, they're no longer interested in these assets. So it's the same as having a pickup truck that you bought 4 years ago, and now the tires are gone, and now you're going to throw the pickup truck away. I mean, these bridges, again, all the beams and all that kind of thing are there. $500,000, you'd have a brand new bridge. You'd have, major development. The land is there to sell. That Crown Lands could pay for the bridge and 10 times more. And it's just the lack of planning. We're trying to develop these areas, are always an attraction for people to come and live.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the rationale is behind the province just throwing their hands in the air and say, well, we're not going to do anything. I appreciate the time this morning. Anything else you want to add this morning, Dexter?
No, that's about it. We do have a petition out there, so if you're interested in signing a petition, you can email rockybrookroad@gmail.com.
Give me that one more time. I was trying to find my pen so I could write it down. Go ahead.
rockybrookroad@gmail.com.
Got it. I appreciate the time. Keep me in the loop, will you?
Okay, will do.
Thanks, Dexter. All the best. All right. Before we get to the break, speaking of petitions, so we know that Clifford Small, on behalf of Graham Wood and others, has tabled a petition regarding the upcoming recreational food fishery, maybe this year and into the future, about expansion. We know 39 days has been the norm for the last couple of years. They're talking about 90 days, and I can't remember the reference to daily bag limits or what have you. Has that moved anywhere beyond simply being tabled by Mr. Small? I don't know. So, Graham, if you're listening, can give us an update on that front. We'll be happy to share that information with the public. But here we go. You know full well, just like everything else, whether it be the commercial fishery and or the recreational food fishery, it's going to be right up to the 11th hour before we figure out exactly what we're going to get, I'll say, this year. The crab harvesters in particular are writing me fairly frequently in the last number of days, and certainly today after the show was kicked off by John Effort Jr. this morning. If you want to chime in on it, let's go. And I don't know how this came across in some people's ears, is that I'm fighting with the harvesters. I don't know how that happened, but that's not the case. We're just asking questions. They give us answers, and away we go. Someone has sent me a picture of a receipt for a crab landed in Nova Scotia, and on that particular receipt, the price was $3.25 a pound. So we have heard $2.50 many times, and of course that story was published on the 11th of March, and apparently this fella, I'll leave his name out of it, fish harvester in that province, landed price $3.25. You want to get into it? We can do it right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's see, line number 3. Mike, you're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Paddy. How are you?
Doing okay, sir. Thank you for asking. How about you?
Me, not too bad. I'm just headed up past the forestry station on the road that takes you from Lawsport up to the Trans-Canada Highway. There's a pickup currently out in a ditch, and there's a tow truck in the process of trying to get it back on the road. There's signs out warning of an incident ahead, but now there is no flag, people, so just give the travelling public heads up about the pickup that's off the road, slow down and drive with care, because it is foggy and one thing or another, so just give you heads up on that.
And give the location one more time for me, Mike.
Dwight, it is. It's just up past the forestry station there on the, I'm not sure what to call it, if it's Road to the Isles or what it is. It's there just up past the forestry station between Lawsport and Lawsport Junction.
I appreciate the heads up. Thanks for doing this, Dwight.
All right, thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too, sir. Bye-bye. All right, let's keep rolling. Line number 1. Mike, you're on the air.
Yes, good day, Paddy.
Good day to you.
Not too bad. I'm calling back with another little bit of information that should concern all the people of this province. But first I want to say, I'm truly an advocate for Newfoundland and Labrador. I love what we have, and I'll go to my grave loving it. So that's why I'm such a big protector. But I'll ask you a question there first. Paddy, what is the most valuable asset to mankind? What would you think the most valuable asset would be?
I don't know. It feels like a bit of a loaded question. I really don't know. How about our health or our children?
Well, you're absolutely right in one sense. But our most valuable asset is our environment.
Okay.
And
wasn't sure exactly what you were getting at, but fair enough.
if we don't have clean drinking water, if we don't have fresh air, if we don't have any of that, then we're already doomed. Would you say that's right?
Well, water certainly, I think, can be rightfully viewed as the most valuable commodity in the world. I mean, it's a not only precious commodity, they're trading it on the stock market, which is a massive red flag. We're blessed in this country with access to fresh drinking water. This has a bit of a problem, though. We've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 municipalities on boil order advisory. Some have been on for years, if not decades. So, yeah, water's pretty precious stuff, obviously.
It is absolutely precious. And one of the largest water mass on planet Earth is the Great Lakes. It's the largest freshwater mass on planet Earth is the Great Lakes. And through the wisdom of it all and on protection and stuff, you cannot dip your head down in the Great Lakes and drink from it freely. It has to be treated for human consumption. There's mercury, there's microplastics and stuff. So with that said and done, this is what we've done to the planet and stuff and that there into our fresh water supplies. And the more I've dove in to why these windmill projects, these turbine projects are coming to Newfoundland, is because in order to make hydrogen, you need pristine water. And they know that, and that's why they're here. And they can't use the water from the Great Lakes and stuff and that there. Pristine water is what they need for the process. And I'm just wondering where all that water is coming, because if these projects, we're not talking millions of cubic meters of water, fresh water. We're talking billions of cubic meters for what government has planned. Now, that's one problem, is the supply. The next problem is disposal of the wastewater, because once it goes through the waste, it either is going to go back into the environment.
No, it'll just be gas.
No, there's a process that comes from. There is wastewater from the process they're using, and that wastewater it can never be treated enough that is perfect for the environment. So we are at the risk here of putting these projects all across our island and this wastewater and the consumption of the wastewater and the fresh water, I should say, and we are really putting ourselves out there. When we already have it, it's pretty much protected, and we have what a lot of the world would die for. You just said it yourself, Paddy. It's a really, really valuable commodity now. Clean water. It really is.
Just maybe I'm missing something here, but isn't the waste product of electrolysis simply hydrogen and oxygen?
My understanding from what I read, and I stand to be corrected, but everything I read from green energy, and this is what they're calling it, because it's wind-driven and is done from water, everything I've read and studied and whatever, the wastewater is a byproduct of it. And there's sulfates in it, and there's sulfide, and there's a bunch of stuff there that goes back out, and it got to go somewhere.
Yeah, what I read, the volume of water after the process is pretty minuscule. I stand to be corrected because I want to make sure we get the accurate information out there, and how that gets disposed of. I'm going to guess, given the fact that it's going to take place at the Port of Stephenville, in the ocean.
Okay. Well, this is another thing, and there's two ways. When they use fresh water, it comes back out with certain amounts of contaminants in it. And the seawater process, and I dwelled in that because they're looking at it, putting it onshore. Mr. Parsons and his wisdom was trying to rush that one through. But the seawater process takes 3 times as much. And then the wastewater that goes back in the sea affects marine life, crustaceans. All of this stuff is affected by that wastewater. And I'm not claiming to be a scientist here, Paddy, but Google Earth is a wonderful thing. You know what I mean? You can be dumb as a rock, and if you read stuff and you can swallow it, you can become a little bit more intelligent at the end of the day.
Yeah. Now, just for clarity, using seawater like that, whatever process, it loses some salinity, it loses some acidity, and then consequently we change the chemical makeup of it. But for World Energy GH2, the fresh water that they are using is coming from a commercial reservoir that's long been established, used to be owned and operated by Abitibi, and so says their submission to the government. The amount, even if they max out all three phases, but all the turbines that are a part of the play, they do not need anywhere near what's even half of the water that's in that reservoir as it stands today, and of course continually being replenished itself. So that's where their water's coming from, just so people know.
Here's my problem, and here's my problem with this hush-hush Rusty's projects through. Don't all of us as Newfoundlanders deserve that respect? Don't we deserve that information prior to, if it's going to affect our watersheds and wastewater? Isn't that should be right bare bones on the table, open for discussion?
Yeah, now, look, I don't live in one of the regions where these proposals are in place, but I've been told, whether it be on Bjorn or on Botwood or on the Port Peninsula, that there has been opportunity for people who would be most impacted to have opportunities to speak to the proponents and town halls, how good they've been, how effective they've been, or how forthcoming people have been. I really don't know, because I haven't attended any of them. The one thing that I think, if we're talking about the environment, people make interesting points, is with the amount of deforestation and devegetation required to build access roads and to put the towers, the windmills in their period, is going to change the composition of the landscape. And consequently, when we talk about some of the turbines that'll be up on hills, then that erosion really does lead to some concerns with how water moves, whether it be from significant rainfall or otherwise. Then it's the height of the bloody turbines. You know, any of the research that's been done in the world about the impact, whether it be on the environment or the flicker of light and or infrasonic sound, have never been including things like the size of these turbines. Just for context, they're talking about these turbines being 200 meters tall. And Confederation Building, if you've ever seen it and stood in front of it, is 64 meters tall. So these things are absolutely massive.
You're absolutely right, Paddy. And I don't think, everybody's busy in their life and everything, and then sometimes people just get towed along by their nose and stuff, and government's going to do what they're going to do and everything else and stuff. But the enormous environmental damage that can come from this should be, out of the 500,000 people that live here between Newfoundland and Labrador, they should wake up with it in the morning, go to bed with it in the morning, because this is enormous. It can affect generations and generations. And if we don't have clean water after these guys roll up their cords and go home, and that leads to something else. And I'll ask you this, Paddy, maybe some of the viewers out there, listeners out there, can highlight me on this. If hydrogen is the way of the world and this green energy, why is this, let's ask ourselves, why is this a 30-year project, not a forever project? Is the demand for hydrogen, if this is the way it's going to go, well, the demand is only going to increase. And the only conclusion I can come up with that is these corporations, these people realize, they probably already done the math, we'll pretty much have all the water that we can suck out of that province gone, and then we're going to roll up our cords and go home in 30 years. But other than that, I cannot come up with another answer, because you wouldn't invest. Well, the federal government is dumping over, giving them $138 million, and then it's always a loan, of course, but it never ever gets paid back. But that's right off the get-go for the taxpayers. So we're going to, the federal government, us, not the federal government, taxpayers, are going to fund this project. $138 million, and that's only the first handout yet. Sure there'll be another.
What's this $138 million you're referring to? I'm sorry.
That's a loan that the first project got on the Port Peninsula. What is it, the World Energy or whatever?
Yes, okay.
The federal government has put that on the table for them already.
Yeah, I was just confused by the number. Yeah, it's $128 million, but you're absolutely right. And it comes in the form of a line of credit. And that's real. And that's after John Risley himself said he would not need or want or ask for any money from the province and or the feds, even though access to very generous tax credits is absolutely in play. We don't know what they're going to be just yet, because there isn't a definition of green in play at the moment. So, yeah.
Yeah. But, we've got Muskrat Falls. Can this province afford any huge more mistakes and stuff? But I got off track there for a minute, Paddy, and I apologize. But So why the powers that be, or the more, maybe Minister Davis can answer these fellas, or Parsons or something, because they seem to know everything. But why is this a 30-year project if we're going to invest all this money?
But that's more about the lifespan of the turbines themselves, as opposed to the potential for business.
Okay. And it's like anything else that happens in Newfoundland or whatever and stuff, especially in the mining industry or whatever. There's no bonding put up. There's no securities put up.
They'll have to. There will be. I've asked the minister that repeatedly. When it comes to liabilities regarding decommissioning and other potential liabilities, they're going to have to pony that money up. And I've asked them that every single time we've talked about these projects. And they consistently say yes. So I am a bit late for the news, Mike. Anything else very quickly before I have to go?
Yeah, just one more thing to add to what you said and stuff and that. Well, that should be public knowledge. They should post that and say how these bonds and securities put up, and they should make it the public knowledge. But anyway, hopefully these projects will be shut down in their tracks. Hopefully the people of this province will come together and not destroy our tourism industry, destroy our watersheds and our landscape. That's all I can say, and I'll probably call again, Paddy, because this is very near and dear to me, and I know this is near and dear to every Newfoundlander.
I appreciate the time, Mike. Thanks for the call.
Thanks, Paddy. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Bye-bye. All right, let's go ahead and take a break. Plenty of time for you right after this. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the program. An observation made by several people based on the last phone call we just had, and many prior when we talk about these proposed onshore wind farms, hydrogen, ammonia, export. We all know it. I mean, there's lots of unknowns here, not only regarding the environment, but the interaction with the public grid. We really don't know how that's going to work. But there is a bit of a juxtaposition. Now, I get it. This is very new to us. Windmills are not new. The size and the status and the stature of these are new, though. They're bigger than anything that I've been able to find anywhere else when we talk about onshore. But some people who are talking about this being rushed through really have very limited problem with how we talk about mining and the impact on the environment, oil and the impact on the environment. Some of that is probably because it is new. We have a basic understanding of how those other two industries work. We have a basic understanding of what that means for the environment. We have a basic understanding of what it means for provincial coffers and job creation and what have you. And yes, they're not all the same and they're not easily intertwined, but it is sort of an interesting facet of this. I would also say that there is concerns, whether it be people in Botwood or down the Burin Peninsula or on the Port-au-Port Peninsula, and maybe people in close proximity to Pattern Energy in Argentia, at the Port of Argentia, about this. But it's really quite something, and I think it's fascinating. The real focus on World Energy GH2. Now, of course, when we're talking about something as small as the Port-au-Port Peninsula, and my understanding is if all three phases are completed, that the windmills will occupy some 40% of the peninsula, so it's not insignificant. But it's the presence of John Risley. Now, we had John Risley on this program talking about this. So I had him only once. Happy to have him on again, and happy to have the minister on, and happy to do whatever we can do to try to get all the information required out there. But because people know John Risley, and whether you like him or loathe him, or you have any understanding of his business dealings and relationship to the province, he is a bit of a firebrand, for better or worse, and he knows it. And so do his partners. And that focus, whether it be the newness of these proposals and or Mr. Risley, has been really garnered a lot of focus on one proposal, of which there's 5 in the province, but we talk about one. Now, the implications are going to be very similar when we talk about access roads and the amount of deforestation and devegetation, impact on birds and bats and all the rest of it. They're all very, very similar issues, and we can take them on however you see fit. But it is interesting to me when we talk about fast-tracking approvals for mines to take advantage of some of the thirst for critical minerals, even though the prices fell through the floor last year. Lithium in particular, 82.3%. I mean, remarkable stuff. So people want to fast-track LNG, want to fast-track the mines, want to fast-track offshore oil development, but not so much on this front. And that's not a pro or con for the proposals themselves. It's just a juxtaposition based on my observation and the observation brought forward by many others who have been following along this conversation. What people are not following along, apparently, is the ongoing the commission into the inquiry into foreign election interference. I'm trying to keep an eye on it because at one point that was the big story in the country. And you know, whether or not the Prime Minister was briefed by CSIS over the course of 5 years and did little to nothing or said nothing about it, and that's the way it's been revealed inside the work being done by Justice Oul and the lawyers that are representing all different sides here. Aaron O'Toole yesterday was part of the testimony, as was Michael Chong and others. Michael Chong talking about the fact that when he was voting on a motion about the genocide of the Uyghurs in China, he and his relatives in Hong Kong were attacked, basically. And then Aaron O'Toole talking about the fact that he blames the foreign interference and the way some of the nomination process went and the presentation of a petition to remove him as leader as his demise. But, you know, even when Chen, the member, his name, I think it was Bert Chen put forward this petition to remove Mr. O'Toole from the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada, it was a long time later, based on upheaval in the party voted him out. The petition didn't bounce him out. So there's been lots of fascinating testimony, including former Liberal member for Don Valley, now sitting as an independent, Han Dong, and his role in dealing with Chinese officials in Canada. And the thought was that he was advising the Chinese officials to relay to Beijing that they should not release Michael Spavor or Michael Korvig. And he, in testimony the other day, said that's not true. And then there's, you know, you take it a step further, and I think of Spavor. The government settled a $7 million lawsuit out of court with Michael Spavor. For what? We have no earthly idea. But that is a big story that really got very little traction as well. So as much as we can focus in on the issues of the day of importance to you, that issue regarding foreign interference in elections is really a critical piece of work being done by Justice Oul and the other members of the Commission. Anyway, let's take a break on time. When we come back, we have indeed spoke with John Effort this morning, the face of the protests regarding the setting of prices and outside buyers and processing capacity and controlling agreements and foreign ownership, all the rest of it. Representing the Association for Seafood Producers is their Executive Director, his Jeff Loader. He's up right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. As advertised, joining us on line number one is the Executive Director of the Association of Seafood Producers. That's Jeff Loader. Good morning, Jeff. You're on the air.
Good day, Paddy. How are you?
Doing okay, sir. How about yourself?
Not too bad.
From now on, during this conversation, I'm going to refer to your organization as ASP, just to make life easy on my tongue. Okay, so yesterday you were talking about all the goings on here, and you're talking about the disappointment that you have in the amount of misinformation that's being shared. What exactly is the misinformation you're referring to?
So I'll start, Paddy, with this concept that there was a price set by the panel. There was not a single price set by the panel. The panel accepted between two different submissions related to a sharing arrangement formula, price-to-market formula, that will determine a price on a weekly basis as the season unfolds. It is based on historical information. Both the union submission and ASP submission to the panel were based on an understanding of the historical relationship between raw material prices and the prices received in the market. The fundamental difference between the two, which has been really a core of the debate for quite some time, and a key part of the misinformation, is that the harvester's share, and this is outlined very clearly in our submission, is between starting really at almost 54% up to 57%. The other numbers that have been thrown around publicly over the last few days suggesting that harvesters receive a 37, 36, 38% share is ignoring that there is a yield factor. A pound of crab caught at the wharf is not a pound of crab, a finished product. There's an approximate yield of 65%, so we end up with a 35% loss during the processing process. This has been a well-established fact done by independent work both at the Marine Institute and independent research in the past. So that's the first piece. So what the panel selected was a fair sharing arrangement with over 50% of the value created in the market going to harvesters. But I think the larger point is here, it's a formula. And if you compare that formula right now to what's going on in the Gulf, for example, because there's a lot of chatter and noise around it should be a $3 price because that's what's being received right now in the Gulf. There's a couple of sort of, I think, key facts around that people should understand. One is processors in Newfoundland pay for costs that are not paid for by processors in the Gulf. They include workplace Newfoundland and employment insurance premiums, around 8 cents a pound, higher transportation and freight costs between 4 and 10 cents a pound, and we have mandatory dockside grading in Newfoundland, which is between 1 to 3 cents. This was examined several times in the past. There's a 27 to 35 cent differential. But if you look at where the Urner berry price is for Gulf crab, with its larger size characteristics, its somewhat better color on average, it's $6, and it probably will increase over the next couple of weeks a little bit, and it puts the price in that $3 to $3.25 range right now. They've had a drop in quota of 27%, which has introduced some other competitive realities of people trying to secure supply, which has driven the price higher than really what the market is going to pay. So this comparison between crab caught in Newfoundland and sold from here into the market versus what's happening in the Gulf is a fallacy, and we cannot make decisions in Newfoundland based on what's happening in other jurisdictions. The other, I think, couple of key points is we've had a schedule in place for snow crab for over 20 years. The schedule that was adopted by the panel is verbatim what has been there for 20 years. It is not a new schedule. None of the new quality deductions were accepted by the panel, and the panel put back in a 20% tolerance for smaller standard-sized crab, which was a request of the union. ASP argued for 5%. So it is a balanced decision. But there's a lot of misinformation and there's a lot of perception out there driving this narrative and this discussion, which are not based in fact and reality. I understand that this is an emotional time. There's a lot at stake for all parties, including harvesters, processors, and equally as important, plant workers. This notion that there will be no impact on plant workers if a substantial amount of raw product leaves this province.
Before we move to that part, because I do want to talk about that, but with the additional expense here in this province versus across the Gulf, that adds up to 65 cents per? Because that's a difference between
25 and 35 cents a pound.
But we're talking about a 65-cent difference here, because if it's $2.60 versus $3.25, and you're telling me it's 35 cents, and that's another 30 cents that's on the table. Am I doing the math properly here?
No, you're doing the math properly, but their Urner berry market price is higher. It's at $6. Newfoundland's at $5.45. So right now, and to be fair and to be very frank and open, which has been our motto now for quite some time, the $5.45 Urner berry price for Newfoundland snow crab is based on last year's snow crab. We are expecting that to increase. I said that publicly yesterday. But in order for that to happen, we have to start the fishery. And we have to get snow crab into the market to really determine what the market price is right now. Now, the other part of that, though, Patty, that's important, is the $2.60 is a guaranteed minimum price. And that's where processors are taking the downside risk. In a true formula, all parties would share downside risk as well as upside risk. The union asked last year for a guaranteed minimum price so that it was economically feasible to fish, to use some words that are being thrown around over the last few days. We made a guaranteed minimum price of $2.60, and then as it got to 1 cent above that, really roughly a $5.50 Urner berry price, then you would kick in the formula, and that would go up to $12, between $7.43 Canadian to $12 Canadian. Both parties would still have a right to seek a change under extraordinary circumstances, and in an ideal world, we'd have the problem that the price was $13, but that's not, I think, reality at this time. The other piece of misinformation to your earlier question was that the sharing arrangement was capped on harvesters at $8 Canadian. That is mathematically incorrect. The sharing arrangement was set at that number with a cap of 57%, but for every cent after that, up to $12, that the price in the market increased, harvesters would get their 57% share and processors would get 43%. So it isn't a cap on the share to harvesters at all. That's not correct mathematically. But there has to be a recognition that there's a fair sharing arrangement for both sides. That sharing arrangement was more ambitious than what was set by the panel last year. And we put that offer in out of not just from a position of good faith, but because we do want the season to start. And I'm going to continue to have a dialogue with all the stakeholders involved, and we need to get the fishery started as soon as possible.
Okay, so inside that world, John Efford this morning also said when referencing the formula or the price you put forward, included the reference to the 65% yield, which he says has not been included in the past. Is that an accurate statement?
No, that's not an accurate statement. The panel, over the last 2 years, has vetted that. The Blackwood Strategic Report confirmed that. That's completely false.
When we talk about the increase in the market price and adjustments, whether it be from a cent or a nickel or a dime, is that automatic or is this a reapplication process to the panel?
Automatic. It will happen every Saturday, just like last year when we had a hybrid formula in place. We will look at the Urner-Berry price on Tuesday and Thursday of the week before, and we will look at the average exchange rate, and a new price will be set every Saturday, and payroll will be done that following week, which is another part of this conversation related to additional costs. We do payroll for harvesters, and that was one of the complications related to a formula discussion. Having to do 75,000 reconciliations at the end of the year with a very unclear, and this was noted by the panel chair and in the decision, there's a lot involved with that. So we took the approach of simplicity so that harvesters could know exactly what price they would receive based on a very clear table, which is one of the reasons we designed our formula as we did.
Did your organization lobby the minister responsible, which from my understanding is Bernard Davis in Labour, did you lobby the government for an 11th hour change to the negotiations? Because we're right back to where we started last year with the exact same process for selecting a price. A 3-person panel gets a price from you, a price from the union, and picks one in a 2-1 vote and a dissent vote eventually by Earl McCurdy. So did you lobby for that change?
ASP has been working since last February to agree on a formula with the union. The province made it publicly known that they would be imposing some type of requirement to set a formula this year. Our position all along was very clear on this. If you are going to cherry pick elements of a report like the Blackwood report, we would have a problem with that. What we were okay with was where it was landed, which was final offer selection related to a formula and interest arbitration on all the other elements of the schedule. It was unfortunate that that decision was made so late in the process and put both parties in a difficult spot with very limited time to prepare for that type of change, but both parties had the same opportunity to present a submission to the panel. My is to lobby on behalf of processors in this province and plant workers in this province, and I will continue to do that, Pat.
Given the fact that outside buyers are going to have to pay some of the additional premiums and costs, just like the local processors, does that not close that gap that you were talking about from $2.60 to $3.25? Because if they're going to have to pay more, then they're going to have to adjust their prices accordingly. So are some of those additional payments here for local processors offset because the outside buyers are going to have to do the same thing?
So our position is that processors in Newfoundland are highly competitive. We have very good relationships with harvesters, despite commentary suggesting otherwise. We have very close ties to communities in these provinces whose entire workforce work in processing plants. We're not afraid of a little bit of competition as long as it's on the same terms and conditions as competition in this province. And I do find some of the narrative that's been put out there on free enterprise very interesting, because there's now threats related to closing down multiple fisheries, not having the ability of people to go to work, challenging whether there's raw material that comes in from other provinces to be processed here. I'm not sure what world that's free enterprise. People have a right to go to work, and nobody should stop that from happening, and that's a fight that we're going to continue to fight.
If we're talking about free enterprise and competition, would the ASP be open to auctions right on the wharf?
We have had a system in place now for a very long time. There are issues with that system, Patty, but those issues come from a history of really two parties not looking at the situation from the right perspective. That's where ASP has been now since last January, and we're going to continue to advocate for a less conflictual relationship with the union. We're going to continue to build relationships with harvesters to create more value in this province. There are increasing EI requirements for workers in our plants. We have a almost entire reliance on one market, which is the United States. All this time that has been spent over the last few months, and really now for the last 6 months, should have been spent on working collectively together to create more value for this province. One of the core public policies that has been adopted in this province going back to the 1980s is that we should work to create employment in this province. It's what drives the oil and gas sector. It's what drives the mining sector. It should be the exact same for the fishery.
I'm sorry, was that a yes or no to open to an auction?
No, we are not open to an auction at this time.
Okay, John Efford also said that some of your comments about quality, because we know there's more in the way of barnacles on some of the crab from some of the zones here, not all the zones in this province, when you compare to, say, for instance, the province of Nova Scotia. He wants to understand the thought process behind talking down the quality of our product, because talking up the quality is also a value-added conversation.
So there are two different issues. It's one thing to talk about the quality of a product when it leaves processing plant in this province, which is of the highest quality, and we stand by our products. It's another thing to not keep the eye on the ball here, which is we need to make sure that from the beginning of the chain of custody, from when the crab is caught on a boat till the time it leaves the plant, we adhere to the provincial regulations related to temperature requirements and the storage of crab. ASP is going to continue to work both with the province and with the union, who have repeatedly stated their commitment to work with us to ensure quality through the entire chain of custody. There have been, and the data supports this, it's in our submission, you can all read it, all your listeners and yourself, there's issues with overfilled pans, there's issues with temperature, there's issues with barnacles. These are things that are outside of ASP's control. ASP purchases the product at the point of sale, not prior to that. So what we tried to do this year was to focus on the best that we could, ensuring that provincial regulations are followed. We're not going to apologize for that. We should all be working to increase the quality and the treatment and the handling of snow crab across the entire chain of custody.
Okay, so I don't know if the right words are clean and dirty zones, but I'll use them anyway. People will know what I'm getting at here. So if a set price is a set price, but if there's less cost and effort required for, say, crab coming out of 3K, why shouldn't they get more for their product there if there's less work required by the processor compared to other zones where there's more work required? Because as you say, the product is the product once it leaves the plant and is of the utmost quality. So shouldn't there be a floating price for the less work to be done to process the crab?
Well, the schedule does deal with differential pricing for barnacles and different things. There are deductions for that built in, and we had a conversation with the union about more deductions. But I do think it's important to go back to the way the legislation is set up. Yes, we have this year there was a regulatory change to deal with the formula. But the system that we've had for quite some time is that there's a guaranteed minimum price for all harvesters. And similar to a minimum wage, this is the concept. And we all know there have been other types of incremental payments paid, bonuses and different things over the years. That's the system that has been in place. ASP will continue to be open to a conversation on differential pricing associated with the quality of snow crab. It is already inherent in the system. And we spent a lot of energy this year dealing with that. We presented all of our grading information to the Blackwood panel. It was addressed in that panel, and we're going to continue to have a dialogue with both the province and the union on it.
I appreciate the time. I'm late for the news, but thanks for the call, Jeff.
Thank you, Paddy. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. It's Jeff Loader, Executive Director at ASP. Let's take a break. Don't go away.
Nutrition, exercise, keeping the cold at bay. Whatever keeps you feeling great, the Wellness and Healthy Lifestyle Show on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the producing artistic director with Persistence Theatre Company. That's Jen Dion. Jen, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Patty. How are you today?
I'm well, thanks. How about you?
Oh, I am fantastic. We are having our rescheduled International Women's Day luncheon tomorrow at the Sheridan for 200 people who are coming to hear our keynote speaker this year is the amazing Nicole Kiley, Deputy Mayor of Mount Pearl. But I know that you guys were interested in chatting because it's kind of perfect that we're having the event this week because there's another major anniversary that just happened yesterday.
Let's talk about it. Dave basically told me what's going on, but let's leave it to you.
No problem. So yesterday was the 99th anniversary of women in the then Dominion of Newfoundland receiving the legislative authority to vote and run for office, which was a great milestone in terms of moving us towards equity for women. And next year, on the 100th anniversary, in 2025, when we celebrate that, of course, our organization is building, we're going to put up the first statue to a named woman in the city of St. John's. And it was, of course, to the leader of the suffrage movement, Armine Nutting-Gosling.
Tell folks about her. I know a little bit about her based on conversations we've actually had on this show, but go ahead and talk about her importance and why a statue is required to reflect her important role.
I think that's a great question. Why are we doing a statue to her, and why doing a statue? Well, women in the narrative of our history are often overlooked, and Armine was a transformative leader of that movement. She was also a mother of 5. She also pioneered great initiatives such as helping alleviate poverty for children in the city of St. John's. Also, she was a huge animal rights activist. She was the person that led the campaign to put in all of the water troughs for horses all around the city. You know the one out in Bowring Park that's still there? That beautiful. Yeah, so it's actually got, those were fountains that were created so horses could have water. And if you look closely at the bottom of the fountain, there's another little opening. That's so the dogs could have water too. So she was just an incredible leader for so many, many initiatives in the city of St. John's. And when finally, after so many years, I mean, we're talking decades of work and petitions and galvanizing of women from across the province, even though Armine was based in St. John's, her and her group did a petition to government of the time that had 20,000 signatures from women all around the outports of the province. And can you just imagine what it would have been like for them to organize a campaign like that 100 years ago without telephones? This was a movement where women were talking to women and saying, we need to get this done. And women in every community of the province came together to sign that petition to say, yes, we believe that women deserve the right to vote and the right to hold office.
Well, of course. So I know this is a couple of steps down the road, but any idea who you'd want to commission to make this statue? Are we talking like Morgan McDonald or?
That was a couple of. We've been working on this since 2020. The statue is almost done, my dear.
Oh, who's making it?
Sheila Coltis. She is she's working with the Newfoundland Browns Foundry, but she will be the first artist who identifies as a woman to create the first public statue in the province. So, I'm mixing up my words, but you know what I mean. It's the first woman to create a public statue in the province. All the other ones have been designed by men. Of course, if we're doing this statue to Armine Nutting-Gosling as the first woman in the city of St. John's, we had to make sure that it was a woman who designed it. And Sheila Coltis fit the bill. So the process has actually been undergone in the Foundry for the last couple of years. This summer, we are prepping the site in Bannerman Park with the City of St. John's and the Grand Concourse Authority. So you're going to see some, pathways and flower beds go down where the statue is actually going to go up, and the concrete base, because of course it's made out of bronze. And then we're going to actually unveil it and put it up there 1 year from this week.
Fantastic. Where's her foundry?
The foundry is in the Newfoundland Bronze Foundry. I think your listeners would be familiar with Morgan McDonald.
Oh yeah.
So that is his shop. Yeah. So she works with Morgan, and their foundry is just outside. They're on Marine Drive in Logie Bay.
Yeah, I've been there. I was actually part of that 100 Faces of War that down in Victoria Park, and I went in and had my face bronzed. That was crazy experience. They're incredible. Yeah. So I must have met her that day.
Yeah, well, it's like they don these spacesuits when they have to pour this, and it's a multi-step. They actually have to go through a whole bunch of different kinds of molds before they get to casting the bronze. So it's a fascinating artistic process in itself. But the fact that it's very special. It's very special to put this first statue up to a woman, and of course, we're not a rich organization. We're a small nonprofit charity here in the city. So it takes a lot of fundraising for us. We're not, God bless you, Danny Williams, that you can put one up in Galway with the snap of your fingers. But we are working our guts out. We're asking for $25 here and $25 there, but we're still $50,000 away from meeting the cost of getting the statue completed and the interpretive signage done. So that's why we really appreciate these opportunities to communicate about the campaign and reach out to those in our community who are willing to come on board and help us realize this vital initiative to help have some more balanced representation of some of the amazing contributions of women from our history.
Last one, give the folks the details one more time about where and when they can hear Nicole Kiley.
Well, you can't because we're sold out for tomorrow, but we are doing some, to the 200 of you that have tickets, we'll see you tomorrow. Doors open at 11:30 at the Sheridan. So that's great, and that's going to raise some more dollars for the statue. But persistencetheater.com is where you can learn about it. It's the hashtag #RaiseHerUp campaign. So if you just Google Persistence, find us, or Google First Statue to a Woman Newfoundland, you will find us, and we will be happy to tell you more and take your money and give you a charitable tax receipt.
Appreciate your time, Jen. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. Jen Dion, producing artistic director with Persistence Theatre Company. Final break of the morning. Don't go away. Brendan's there. Wants to talk about a rare Newfoundland book. I'm interested to hear about what book. Don't go away. And welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Brendan, you're on the air.
Yeah, excuse me. Good morning, Patty. Thank you for taking my call.
Pleasure.
The reason why I'm calling, Patty, is I need to emphasize to the government of Newfoundland the papers, the book that I have acquired back in November. Now, let me just say, first of all, I own Legend Tours. That's not a big thing, but I've been collecting Newfoundland papers and books for about 30 years. So back in November, of course, with an auction, I was aware, of course, of things that were going to be auctioned. And I did some research. And I found, to my astonishment, that these particular papers that were printed in St. John's by John Rhine in 1807, 1808, 1809, 120 newspapers bound on Duckworth Street in the 1880s. They do not exist anywhere in the world. Now, I have it in my collection. The reason why I'm calling is I'm basically appealing to the government of Newfoundland to attain these papers for their collection. The mandate at the Center of Newfoundland Studies at Memorial University is to collect everything that's been published here in Newfoundland. These papers are the earliest papers ever printed on this island, and they do not exist anywhere in the world. Let me just say, there is a private sector that would attain these, but these are so valuable for the people, the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. The government, it'd be their biggest mistake if they do not collect these papers and put them at the Centre for Newfoundland Studies.
Okay, printed where and what are they about?
Okay, so John Rhine published the Royal Gazette. He was commissioned by Governor Holloway. He received a license in 1806. So he started publishing from his print shop on the upper path, which is Duckworth Street, by the way. There was no such name as Duckworth Street when these were printed. You have 120 weeks of newspapers from September 1807 to December 1809 that are missing from the collection. They do not exist anywhere. I've checked with every source, and if you were to check the Center for Newfoundland Studies today and just bring up on the computer, it says from 1807 to 1809, the Royal Gazette does not exist. Paul O'Neill, that published these books 50 years ago, in his books, and we've copied it, says there are nothing of Royal Gazette prior to 1810. We have 500 pages of history that nobody even knows about. Now, I took it upon myself. I flew to Ontario to meet with the greatest appraiser of papers and books in all of Canada. I've come back from Ontario. We have basically made it somewhat known to the government, but we haven't had any response. And the thing is, Patty, these papers were wrote 22 years before the last Beothuk Indians lived. It's remarkable what's in the book and what's in these papers. But just to clarify, it's a one of one. They do not exist anywhere in the world. We've done our research, but I'm appealing to the government that they collect them, and because they're just so vital for the public. And so I'm hoping, as a result of your giving me the opportunity to say a few words, they will reach out. I'm happy to meet with them. And but there are no papers with this history that exist. And, of course, John Rhine was born in Rhode Island in 1761. He died in St. John's in 1847. I mean, you have agencies in Rhode Island. You have different archives down there that would probably be interested. You have the National Archives of Canada. But this is vital because there is nothing pre-1810 at Memorial University.
I got to get going pretty quick, but have they told you outright they're not interested or something?
No, they haven't said that. They haven't said that.
Okay.
We've made a couple of calls, a couple of inquiries, but we haven't had no response. So it's a couple of months ago we sent off emails, and it's like one is just passing it to another, but they don't realize the value of these papers is my point, and that's why I'm going public to let it know.
And I'm glad you did, Brendan. Keep us in the loop with how this proceeds. I'm going to sneak on one more quickly.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye. I'd like to hear that followed up on. Let's go to line number 4. Final word goes to the Director of Fund Development at the Canadian Hard of Hearing Association. That's Terry Martin. Terry, you're on the air.
Again, fascinating story. I'll do this quick because I know you're up against the time clock here. Yep. Tonight is midnight tonight is the deadline for the 50-50 Ultimate campaign. We do it every spring. Right now, the jackpot is over $110,000, and it's just going very, very well. And this is, of course, for the early bird prize that we're at midnight tonight, and that's for $5,000. And I'll just say it quickly: 1-709-800-6118 is the number, and 5050ultimate.com is where you can get them. We appreciate the support, and Patty, once again, you guys are always doing great support for the community, and you help us get our message out.
And we're happy to do it, Terry. I wish we had more time, but thanks for this and good luck.
All right, thank you very much, Patty.
You're welcome, Terry. Bye-bye. That's Terry Martin with the Canadian Hard of Hearing Association, NL. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands who participated and support the program. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Openline. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.